Everyone, it is Kamar, aka Brave Design 86 on YouTube and Brave Design underscore creations on Instagram. Today I want to talk about, as the title says, you may feel like you're unattractive or ugly. I don't like to use that word. But chances are you're just in the wrong place. You're just in the wrong place. And I thought about doing this video today because I just had this conversation with a friend of mine, and he just felt like he was so unattractive. He's like, why doesn't any date pan out for me? Or why is it that when they meet me in person, they seem to not be interested? And he felt like he was going to be alone forever. And it just reminds me of when I lived in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, which I think is like 97% white. And the only diversity they have there are from the college, and they typically don't stay. So I remember how I felt living there, how my self esteem, there was basically no self esteem at all, and how I kept experimenting with my look to see if it would help, because I didn't have the education I have now. Not talking about school, but in terms of life experiences, I didn't have it then. And so, of course, I internalized everything, and I felt like something was just significantly wrong with me. I remember one time I was so desperate for friends, and I may have said it in a previous video. I was so desperate for friends that I tried to make friends with a homeless drug addict. There was also someone that I knew that worked at the grocery store that claimed they wanted to be friends, and I'm not ableist. My part-time job is working with people with disabilities of all sort, IDD or physical. Most of the time it's a combination. But this person had cerebral palsy, um, was struggling to make friends, or so they said. I don't really know. But they happened to be white. And so, the lack of social support and community was not taking the same toll, I don't think, on them as it was for me. And I remember there was a bar, I don't remember what it was called Good Old Days. Um, Maybe I think it was like a quarter of a mile from where I lived, and this person was there hanging out, and they messaged me, and I was like, "Oh, I'm bored. I would probably come out and have wings and drink." And they were like, "As a matter of fact, I'm about to leave." Um, and so I was like, "Okay, well, did you want to hang out during the week? Did you want?" I was desperate. I was desperate to find a friend, and it was all these excuses. Well, this person was on my Facebook, and then I saw that they literally stayed there till like closing. And at the time I felt really shitty. I felt really, really shitty. I felt like a second class citizen, because I was like, here's this person who, in today's society may face some real challenges physically and psychologically. And even them were not proud to be seen out with me, to the point where they lied that they were ready to leave, and they didn't. And I remember the same person again, because I wasn't getting it. I was like 27. I was not getting it. There was a post on Facebook saying, this same person was very sad and lonely and have no friends, and people treat this person bad because they have a disability. And I messaged, and I was like, I mean, we could always hang out, and they just ignored the message. And that's when it kind of hit me, and I couldn't take it anymore. There were a lot of things, people generally, as soon as they wanted to hang out, but as soon as I said, let's go somewhere public, they would just vanish. So, of course, I felt very unattractive. I felt ugly. I felt disgusting. I felt like I was a second class citizen. And if anyone hung out with me, it was just see pity. And I moved to Harrisburg, which is a little more diverse. It's a capital of PA, so it's a bit more diverse than it was in Bloomsburg. Still faced some a little bit of the challenges, but not a lot. It took on its own different things. People were in their cliques. People already had their friendships established. Dating was kind of a disaster, but that's a whole nother story. And I still started realizing that something was off. So if I try to pursue friendships with people, if they did not want to sleep with me, then they just wouldn't communicate at all. If they wanted to sleep with me, then that's all it was. with a promise of a friendship. And it's a good thing I kind of picked that up real quick, that if you want to be my friend but then you're asking what I'm wearing, I already know right there it's not going to go anywhere. It can only go down from there. So at least I will pat myself on the back about that. I picked that up really quickly. um but there were periods where I started experiencing what my friend would, where I would meet someone, I put my best foot forward, I'm very professional, very nice, accommodating, and interesting, because I am a very interesting person, I will admit that. But I still felt like they are typically not proud to take me anywhere. They're not proud to introduce me to people. Um, if we go out, they're a little weird. Unless other people start gravitating towards me, that's when they seem more interested. And that's another thing too. I realized a thing when I would go out on my own, um, rarely anyone would talk to me. But if one person, particularly, because as I said, this area is predominantly white. So if a white person started talking to me, then all of a sudden everybody, so it's almost like that gave them the okay that they can approach, or that means I'm socially acceptable to be spoken to. And this is not a one-off thing. I can guarantee it. My best friend talks about it all the time. He's like, look what happens when one white person talks to you. All of a sudden, you can't even make your way to the bathroom because everybody wants to talk to you. And that kind of reminded me, or it kind of taught me that sometimes your appearance, your race, your ethnicity, whatever you are, if it's not seen as the standard, then you typically run into these issues. Um, but I didn't realize a schema was being developed while all of this was going on. As I said, schemas tend to happen unintentionally. So I would go out and no one would talk to me. Some people like out of town would come and they're like, "How come you're single? How come you're here by yourself?" And I'm like, "This is my life, and I've adapted to it. I'm comfortable. This is my reality. I will come out as often as I can." I know a lot of people would say, "Oh, but I'm on the bar scene." I don't really care. I go to the bar, I have 2 or 3 glasses of Merlot, I people watch, and I leave as soon as the clock hits 2. That's when it's time to leave. And I go home and I repeat the next weekend. But I never really talk to people. And that's the other thing, too. Of course, because they don't talk to me, unless they're drunk and you're trying to bring someone home. But typically, they won't talk to me. And I'm principled enough that I'm not going home with you. I'm sorry. I've never done it. I've been going out for many, many years. I'm talking about 7, 8 years. I had never done it and I never will. Well, now I'm partnered, but still. So it didn't hit me until I started dating someone and I realized that they would take me public if we're out of town. But if we're in town, they prefer Netflix, watch a movie, cook, and all that stuff. And I felt okay with it. I was like, okay, we're bonding. But then for some reason, a realization hit me in the face when I found out that even though this was another of them people that said they weren't ready for a relationship, but I found out during the same time they were getting to know someone of the same race. It's just another white person. And that's when it hit me. I'm like, a lot of times I feel like they have good intentions, but they're afraid of the repercussions because, again, you're not the standard, and now you're going to have to explain a lot. Anyway, during this period, I started to really do some soul searching, and I started to travel, just um, domestically. I didn't go overseas or whatever, and I started realizing a difference. If I went to an area that was more diverse, the way people would approach me would be completely different. They tend to approach me one with curiosity. They want to know where I'm from, what do I do, what do I like, and very seldomly they will come with, well, what are you doing tonight, do you want to come? They don't they I've not had that experience in areas that were more diverse. um of course you'll still get it. People travel around. It's not like the olden days where people were just stuck where they were. But it was less. And my eyes opened when I went to Puerto Rico. And that's why I talk about Puerto Rico so much, because that experience really, really changed my mind about life and how I looked at myself and my self esteem and all the good things. When I went to Puerto Rico, First of all, I'm not gonna lie. I felt like I was in a magazine because in the mall, people were staring, but it wasn't a stare of, it was more a stare of, who is that? I remember working out at the Planet Fitness where it bordered a hair salon and there was glass. So I could see them, they could see me. And they were just like, and I was like, okay. The women were just staring. And I remember the way I felt, but at the same time, I was just basking in the, the temporary self-confidence booster. It wasn't until I started talking to my one friend who is Puerto Rican, born and raised, seldom out of the US. And I was like, why is it that people here tend to celebrate me more than when I was in the US? And that's when he explained to me, he's like, don't get me wrong, prejudice is still here. But here, you're also celebrated as a Black person. Number one, they'll assume that you're from either some part of Africa, or they kind of sense that you're not from here and you're exotic. And but this at the same time, you're not an exotic creature to be played with. They want to get to know you. I remember I went on several dates, like lunch dates, exchange numbers. People wanted to make, that's all they wanted. And they were like, please let me know when you're coming back. This would be amazing. I love your company. One person was like, I don't know if it's true or not, but this one, I think he owned like a hair salon or something. And he's like, I have a friend that loves to work in fashion and I think you'd be a great fit. And I was like, why? And he started describing me as if I was this item. He was like, your cheekbones, the exotic look, your structure. It is just amazing. I think he would love to work with you. And I was like, is this real or not? It made me feel so good that I went back twice in a month. Another place I felt really good at was, of course, Jamaica, where I'm from. Um, because it's a predominantly black area with variations. The greater the variation is, a less, meaning you'll have mixed people mixed with Indian, but the more Indian it goes is the less, because people also integrate a lot there. So but when I'm there, I feel celebrated, I feel interesting. People are interested to know me, and they also appreciate my beauty. And then finally, when I went to the UK, I also experienced that. And it was fantastic because I would get compliments from straight men, gay men, women, children. And I was like, self esteem does not have to come from a sexual place. It doesn't. Just a simple glance or not feeling invisible in a bar is good enough to me. It is. And I didn't have that in. I was shocked in the UK. I stood there waiting because I expect to be, ignored like I do when I go to certain parts of the US. And as soon as I was walking up and this guy like reached over, he's like, okay, what do you want? And I was like, is he talking to me? He's like, yes, yes, what do you need? I was like, okay, I'm not invisible. It's quite an interesting feel. And like I said to my one friend when he started feeling the way he did, I said, I think because you have the means, you need to travel. You need to travel and go someplace. He's white. I'm like, you probably need to go to Europe or somewhere and feel celebrated because that will last. I haven't been to Puerto Rico in, I think it's about to be 2 years, and I still have that with me. Like every time I'm in a space where I feel invisible, I'm like, I'm visible. I'm invisible here, but I ain't invisible there. So my point is, you might just not be where in your tribe. You're not in your tribe. You're not where you're the standard. Okay. It's like I told this one friend of mine, she had issues with her weight. And I said, girl, if you were in some parts of Africa, if you were in Jamaica, you'd be the it thing. Like you'd be it. I remember going to Jamaica, I felt so skinny because everyone was so happy to have some extra weight on them. So it all depends on where you are. And I know, particularly in the LGBTQ community, where appearance is 100% linked to your value, it's also linked to social media. Social media basically predicts what you're supposed to look like. And I know a lot of queer people struggle with that because they're not the it thing. And a lot of times, when people get to meet them, the person with the body image issue or whatever, they are happy to experience, someone that likes them, not realizing that it's coming from a place of fetishism. Um, and as I always say, admiration does not necessarily equal respect. So a lot of times people get dragged into it and it worsens their self-esteem when the person disappears. So, but yeah, I think one good remedy for that is traveling. Traveling to different places and see the difference of treatment, how people make you feel happy about yourself. And then it stays with you, because then when you're back to your old life and you feel invisible, you remember that this is not the world, because it's quite easy for us to view the world from a vacuum. We think our small town or our big city is the world, not realizing that there's a vast world out there where people will basically celebrate. You're one group's trash, you're someone else's treasure. I'm sure in some countries, someone would really, really like to be with someone like me or be seen in public with someone like me. I now experience it. My partner loves to be seen with me. But yeah, um, I don't think I've said this in a while, but please leave your comments below and subscribe and share. And also, I will try this time to leave my email under this video so you can message me about a topic that you want to talk about, or if you want to privately just have a discussion about this, go right ahead. But as I said, you're not ugly, you're not unattractive, you're just not around your tribe, you're not around your people, and that's fine. Go find them, hang out with them, and see your worth. You're valuable. Until then, see you guys.